Hey everyone, if you're thinking about making rye bread, which you should be because it's delicious, you're not going to want to miss this key step. Whether you're making sourdough rye or yeasted rye, this technique will really elevate your rye game to the next level. So let's get into it. Rye flour is a whole different beast compared to wheat flour. Let me talk really quick about the differences between the two. First off, rye is a super hardy grain, which makes it able to thrive in cool and cold and harsh climates, which is why it's been a staple in North and Eastern Europe for centuries. And because it's been around so long, there's a lot of deep rooted traditions around rye. If you're someone watching from Europe, I'd love to hear from you about your experience with rye in Europe and the traditions you might have around that. Compared to wheat, rye has a much lower gluten content, and because of that, it makes the bread rather dense. And that's something you'll notice in your final product, but that's normal. Don't be alarmed by that. It also affects the elasticity of the bread. And when you're working with the dough, you'll notice that it's not developing as strong of a network of gluten as you would with all wheat flour. And that affects the final product in that it's going to be a heavier bread as well as a tighter crumb with less oven spring. The taste of rye is where it really stands out from wheat flour. Rye has a really rich, deep, earthy flavor to it with not so subtle sour notes. Honestly, it's much more flavorful than wheat flour, and it pairs great with hearty foods like smoked or cured meats or cheeses. All right, so let's talk about why you're here. There's one key step that you do not want to miss when you're making rye bread. Whether you're using coarse rye flour or fine rye flour, either way, the process is the same, and that process is called scalding. Well, what is scalding? Scalding is when you take your rye flour and you add really hot water to it just before boiling. And what does that do? That gelatinizes the starches in the rye flour. This makes it much easier to work with. It helps absorb all of the water, makes the grains more absorbable, and makes the dough less sticky and more easy to work with. Without scalding your rye flour, you're going to have a really hard time integrating the water with the flour. When you gelatinize it like this by scalding, it makes the whole process so much easier. All right, I'm going to get into this demo and show you how to do this the right way. But first of all, there's some considerations that you need to make before we get started. And that is, how much rye flour are you going to use in your formula? Now you might be thinking, I'm going to use all rye flour, 100% rye flour. Well, that's awesome, but you should be warned that that's a very intense flavor. And if you've never had rye bread or used rye flour before, I might recommend easing into it a little bit because it is so much different than wheat. For example, maybe doing 30% rye flour, 70% wheat. My personal favorite is 50% rye flour, 50% wheat, and that's what I'm going to be doing for this demonstration. But you will want to do whatever works for you. The process is the same no matter what, but you want to figure that out before you get started. And the second thing you want to know about is what hydration percentage you're going to use. What are hydration percentages? Well, hydration percentages are the amount of water compared to the weight of the flour you're using. With rye flour, you need to use a higher water percentage because rye has specific carbohydrates in it that absorb more water. It has less gluten, and so a higher water percentage is needed to keep the dough moist and keep the bread from getting too dry or drying out. For this demonstration, I'm going to be using 600 grams of flour total. 300 grams is going to be of rye flour and 300 grams is going to be of wheat flour. I'm going to be using a higher water percentage for this bread because I'm using rye, and that hydration percentage is going to be 85%. And so to figure that out, I'm going to take the 600 grams of flour, and 85% of that is 510 grams. So 510 grams is the amount of water I need for this bread loaf. So let's get into the demo. All right, so we're back for the demo. As you can see, I've got a little station set up here. Uh, what I have with me is an electric kettle where I am getting some water up to a boil. If you don't have an electric kettle, you can use a normal tea kettle, or you can just use a pan and boil the water on the stovetop. I also have something to scoop my flour with, a stainless steel bowl. I would recommend using something that isn't plastic, because when you're pouring the hot water in there, you don't want any of those plastic chemicals to kind of leach into your flour. So use like a glass bowl or a stainless steel bowl. And then, of course, the most important thing is a food scale. These are super cheap. You can get them on Amazon. I think this one was like 10 bucks. So what I'm going to do first is measure out my flour. Today I'm using Sunrise Flour Mills coarse rye flour and their fine rye flour. I'm going to use a mixture of both, but if you just have one type available, that works too. I'm just going to mix it up a little bit and use both varieties. So I'm going to do 300 grams total of rye flour. So I've got about 100 grams of the coarse rye flour in there, and I'm going to add 200 grams of the fine rye flour, and that equals out to 300 grams. All right, and then I'm going to be using a metal spoon to stir this all up with in my stainless steel bowl here. And as I talked about in the previous section of this video, this is going to be a mixture of rye flour and wheat flour. However, I'm only going to scald the rye flour first. So after this is scalded, I'm going to add wheat flour to this. The total mass of the loaf, as far as flour goes, is 600 grams. And then the hydration percentage for this loaf is 85%. So 85% of 600 grams is 510 grams. So I'm going to get my scale back on here, put my bowl on it, and zero it out. And I'm going to add 510 grams of water to this 300 grams of rye flour. All right, 510 grams of scalding, or 510 grams of hot water. I'm going to change the camera angle so you can see inside the bowl. All right, so here's what it looks like inside the bowl, and I'm just going to simply stir this together, and what you'll find is that it comes together super nicely. If you weren't to use the scalding method, it would be really hard to mix the water completely with the rye flour because of how it's made up. So what we're looking for is just a gelatin or gelatinized state, just like this. So this is perfect. And as you can see, it's just kind of a gloopy, gloppy mess of flour. And that's exactly what we want. All right, so for next steps, all we have to do is hurry up and wait. So it's piping hot right now. We don't want to add our sourdough starter or our commercial yeast to this at this point, because this is super high temp, and anything above 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 48 degrees Celsius, our yeast friends start dying off. And so we want to let this cool down to a more reasonable temp. I would say no hotter than 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius. And so this will take a couple hours to come down to a reasonable temp. You know, you don't have to do this right before you're making your bread or your dough. You could do it the night before to save some time. It really doesn't matter. But once this cools down to a reasonable temp, we're going to come back. I'm going to add the wheat flour, show you how that mixes in. And then I'm going to tell you about another ingredient that we're going to add that will really help kind of cut through the earthy, bitter flavors of the rye flour, if that's what you're looking for. So stay tuned. Let's let this cool down. All right, so we're back. It's been a couple of hours. Our rye flour that we scalded has had a chance to come down to a reasonable temperature. Still looks exactly the same, just kind of a gelatinized, goopy mess of flour, which is exactly what we want. Now we're going to add some additional ingredients to this dough to get the bread process started. Specifically, we're going to add salt, our sourdough starter. If you're not using sourdough starter, you can use commercial yeast. Our wheat flour, if you're going to mix it like I'm doing. And then our secret ingredient, honey. So honey is really going to help cut through some of the bitter, earthy flavors of this rye flour. And so I would recommend that, at least trying it out, see what you think. So let's start by adding in our flour. I'm going to add wheat flour, and like I said before, 300 grams of wheat flour. All right, and now I want to add in 12 grams of salt. And as far as sourdough starter goes, I'm going to add in 120 grams. There we go, 122. And then I'm going to add in 12 grams of honey. Now, if you have a stand mixer, this would be the time to turn that on and let it do its thing. I'm going to mix it by hand just to show you what that is like. And I'm just using a little spatula here to kind of mix this together and get all the ingredients integrated in. It's a little more difficult than it is with just a normal wheat loaf. So you want to be a little patient with it. It's going to take a little bit more time to kind of integrate everything together. All right, so at this point, the dough is pretty well mixed together. The key is just to make sure that you have everything fully integrated. All right, so at this point, our dough is fully mixed together. And as far as next steps go, it's the same process that we would use for a wheat loaf of bread. So our dough has just begun its bulk fermentation process. And in about 30 minutes to an hour, we're going to start doing our stretch and folds or coil folds. And then once it's completed its fermentation process, we're going to shape it and then bake it in a Dutch oven, bread pan, or an open bake steamed oven. And if you're unfamiliar with any of those terms I use, check out my YouTube channel. I have a start to finish sourdough bread video. You can use it if you're doing this with yeast or sourdough starter, and just start at the timestamp I have in there for stretch and folds. And the process is the same for yeast or sourdough starter. As far as the finished product goes, this is what it looks like. Rye flour has a much darker color to it than wheat flour does as far as the final product. This is the 50-50 loaf. This is half rye, half wheat. And one thing you'll notice is that it has a much denser and tighter structure to it inside the crumb. And that's because rye flour has less gluten than wheat flour and less gluten strength overall. So the oven spring is not as great as you'd get from a 100% wheat flour loaf. So I hope you enjoyed this technique video. I would love to hear from you on the traditions you might have around rye flour, or how this process went for you. If you have any questions at all, if you don't have rye flour at your local grocery store, I have a discount code for 20% off this organic rye flour, or any of their products really, from Sunrise Flour Mill. Check that out in my video description. And then if you liked this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. It would help my small channel out a lot. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Happy baking.